You are listening to the Hiking Radio Network, where we talk the walk with shows by hikers about hikers for everybody. Returning to Katahdin, an Appalachian Trail dream. Have you ever dreamt of hiking the AT? Bruce Matson did, so we're going to follow him every step of the way. Hi, and welcome back to Returning to Katahdin, an Appalachian Trail Dream, sponsored by our friends at Trailtopia. Having left the rocks of Pennsylvania behind, Bruce has got through New Jersey and is into New York. We were able to catch up twice this week, with the second conversation coming well past my normal midday on Sunday deadline. Eventually, we worked out that we'd be able to talk at 3 p.m, and then that was delayed because he didn't have a decent signal. Then, as you're going to hear, I was in the middle of a ferocious Florida thunderstorm and subsequently had a power cut, which knocked out my electricity for a few hours. So I was really sweating on getting it done. Still, we did it. And just before we speak with our man, let's have a spot of lunch. How about those days when you struggle through the morning, probably got 10 miles under your belt, and breakfast is a distant memory? It's lunchtime and, you could always have your full Snickers of the day for yet another sugar rush. But sitting there in an empty shelter, protected from the bitter wind, I'm sure you'd really rather have Trailtopia's beef-flavoured ramen noodles with green beans, corn and mushrooms. D-flippin'-licious. And if you need to go without the gluten, all of Trailtopia's ramen noodle lunches and light dinners are available gluten-free. Try Trailtopia Adventure Food, the best of home cooking away from home. So now, here's our first chat, recorded last Wednesday. Watch out at the end when I ask Bruce a couple of quickfire questions about some of his least favourite and some of his favourite places so far. Here is Bruce.
Mighty Blue.
Hey Bruce, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. We're going to get straight into it, rather.
Okay.
And firstly, what mile are you at? I know when we spoke the other day, or when we texted the other day, you were past 1,300 miles.
Yeah, I'm at 1363. I'm at a shelter.
1363. Wow, you are moving on, aren't you? Wow.
Wawayanda or something like that.
Well, I remember it well, yes. And
It's
funny
right
enough...
right after the stairway to heaven.
That's right. And it felt like it.
I tell you, that was a pretty good climb.
Yes, it was. Did you go into, because I've been looking at your progress, obviously. Firstly, did you stay at the Mohican Outdoor Centre?
Yes, I did.
Did you? And you get your own little tent spot, don't you? Which is pretty cool.
It's a long story. I had a box there and it didn't get delivered and I got ahead of myself and we're still looking for the box. So
dear,
anyway, I just stay there.
Have you actually, now you mentioned that, has your attitude towards boxes changed while you've been on the trail? Would you necessarily send packages as regularly as you have, or would you just be able to resupply from the trail itself?
Yeah, that's a good question because I've been thinking about that. I probably would continue. I mean, it's so nice to get a resupply box, I got to tell you. And,
yes, I know.
And it's if you want to live off of Trailtopia, it's not, and I don't mean Trailtopia, let's say Mountain House, because obviously Trailtopia is not that available. So my package didn't come in. This is actually answering your question. My package didn't come in. So I went into Unionville yesterday.
Yeah.
To resupply like I've never had to do before. Believe it or not, I've come this far. I've had resupply boxes from Cheryl, and it's gone well.
But if you look at the trail though, the way it is, don't you think you could have gone without, and you could be carrying less food every day?
Yeah, I think so. But to do that, I'm not saying it's all that terrible or hard, but up here in New York, New Jersey, you're always going to be hitching 1 to 3 miles.
Yeah.
And I think you lose a half a day doing that stuff. And I mean, more people do it than not. So yeah. I think I would, to answer your question, I think I would have less boxes, but I still would have boxes, particularly to get, like when I go into Unionville, I can't get Mountain House, and
No.
I know Mountain House is expensive, but right now my cooking setup relies on just boiling water. If I'm going to start cooking north side and ramen, I got to have a different cook setup.
Yeah, very true. Very true, actually. Yeah, and I remember going into Unionville myself. There's I don't know whether they've still got it open. There's a local park people were going camping in. Did you go in there?
Well, I checked it out, and it would have been a very good place to stay, but it was kind of midday, and even though we hung out there for a while and had fun on the general store porch, which was lovely, it was a beautiful day, and the breeze was nice. We'd only gone about 7-8 miles that day, so we went on to the shelter last night.
All right. I seem to remember there were charging stations outside there, weren't there, for hikers?
If there were, I missed them, but I can't say I was looking for them.
Right,
there was charging at the general store, though.
Yeah, sorry, that's what I meant, at the general store, yeah. That's exactly what I meant, yeah.
General store was great. Really good people, good food. I had a nice pastrami sandwich, and I resupplied there, but it wasn't the easiest resupply for me based on at least my current plans.
Yeah, so you actually went into New York, but you're back in New Jersey now, aren't you?
Yeah. I think we go back to New York tomorrow for good.
Yeah, and you start hitting the delis as well, don't you? Which is...
Yeah, we hit one today.
Oh, did you? Aren't they great? You can't beat them, can you?
Right before Heaven Hill Farm, there's a hot dog stand, and Heaven Hill Farm has, well, actually not a deli. I take that back. They had sandwiches, but mainly Heaven Hill Farm is, ice cream and produce.
Oh,
I had an orange. It was so good to have a fresh orange.
Is that the walk
and ice cream
off the it's just off the trail by about half a mile or something like that? Yeah. Oh, that was great.
No, just 0.1.
All right.
Tomorrow was Bellevue is Creamery, and that's probably even more famous, and that's 0.3 off the trail.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. So that was great. I actually parked in the car park, tented in the car park there that night. God, it was great. Yeah, I've got a question for you from Scott Humphrey, which is an interesting one. It's more of a conversation than a question, really. How does Bruce feel he would be doing if this were the 1940s Appalachian Trail hiking versus 2018? Certainly the abundance of services and advancements in technology have made the trail a little less of a challenge. I just thought maybe you could discuss or expand upon this idea. Hiking a mile uphill in 1937 and hiking a mile in 2018 are essentially the same. But over the course of 2,000 plus miles, the shoes, the pack, the resupplies, and even the number of people hiking certainly must serve as a boost to the isolation from decades ago. Have you considered that? What it must have been like?
Yeah, a little bit, because we've had a chance to talk to some other through hikers. I had a chance to talk to Ron Tipton a number of times, and he did a through hike in the 70s. And I did hike much more in the 70s, and I actually have my old equipment. And one of my buddies, my old roommate canoeing buddy, actually came out and did Grayson Highlands and some of that area with me. And he actually, I don't know if I told you, he actually brought his old 70s Optimus stove, and it's kind of fun to see the retro equipment, and all the through hikers looking at this going, what is this thing? Anyway, so I have thought about it. I think it's hard every day out here, and I think if I was doing this in the 40s, it would be much harder. I think you need to talk to Lori at the ATC, and I hear conflicting reports from people about whether the trail is actually harder or easier in terms of how it's been routed. But
I think the routing makes a big difference, though, doesn't it? Because a lot of it in the 30s and 40s and 50s was road walking, wasn't it?
Yeah. In fact, they when we were all hanging out in Unionville yesterday in this great covered porch, and one of the customers said, "You guys have heard about retro hiking, haven't you?" And we said, "Well, no, what's that?" He goes, "Well," he says, the trail used to start at High Point State Park on the road, come all the way through Unionville, and continue up to this other town, all on the road." And what he was saying was, if you guys want a retro, meaning if you want to hike the old AT, you can leave Unionville on the road for 1 mile, and I hike a much quicker, easier route than current route. So anyway, to really answer the question, I think it had to have been harder in the 40s. If I was doing it in the 40s and I was 60 years old, I think this would be a really brutal undertaking.
It's interesting. I agree with that. Our age makes a difference. A 60-year-old man now, as opposed to a 60-year-old man in the 40s, was an entirely different proposition, though, wasn't it?
I think look, it's hard every day out here, and it's not so hard I want to quit, but it's hard. And I have the benefit of this ultralight great tent that, in the 40s would have weighed 3 times what it weighs today. And we can go on and on about the lightweight cooking equipment, the better design packs. There's so many things that make the hiking experience and the camping experience easier, that I have enormous admiration for anybody who's completed this trail. But thinking back from the 40s until certainly almost the turn of the century, it was a tougher undertaking. The technology, I can, when I finish talking to you, I can tonight call Cheryl because I've got 3 bars, and I think your ability to stay in touch, probably impacts your mental outlook. And we've always said your mental approach is probably the most important thing to getting this hike finished. My instincts would be that the hike in the 40s would be a materially more difficult undertaking than what I'm doing.
I think the thing that would really, really not make me want to do it, actually, is the almost total solitude that must have been in the 40s and 50s. You could have literally gone 4 or 5 days without seeing somebody. And I don't think I would have enjoyed that. I enjoyed the social part of it. So I think for me, that certainly added to it. I don't know about you, whether you would have liked more solitude or not.
Yeah, I'm with you. I like my solitude, but I like my social time too. And I think when you want solitude out here, it's not that hard to get it.
Yes.
You just sort of, you drop at a pace where you're hiking by yourself, and you engage with people at meals or at shelters, and I think you can have it both ways. And I agree with you that the pure solitude probably would have been an interesting thing to do, and I wouldn't mind doing it for a week, because that alone I think would be an interesting exercise. But I don't think it's something I'd want to do for 100 days or 200 days.
Are you still enjoying New Jersey? Because I remember I just loved it in there. It became one of my favorite states, I'll tell you.
Yeah, I think so. I think what I decided the last 2 days is that New Jersey is a little bit more about variety. We had different kinds of terrain. We'd go through some farmer fields. We would go by some ponds. We'd be up on the ridge. We'd have some good views. Yesterday we had actually some. I'm trying to make sure I get my days straight. Oh, yesterday we had that long road walk, which is not all that fun, followed by that very, you walk at a 90-degree angle around the Wall Hill Refuge.
That's right. Yeah.
And so dead flat. It's very pleasant for the walking experience, although the sun was very hot yesterday and we were exposed. But you're basically walking around this low country, almost a swampy area that is obviously must be a bird refuge. So you had that, and then you also have things like the Stairway to Heaven, and there were 2 I thought really tough climbs, short but tough climbs, leading into the state park and the High Point. And we had so to me there's actually been much more variety. Today we had that mile-long boardwalk through that marshy area. Yeah,
that's lovely as well. I really enjoyed that.
So to me, I like the changing environments, whether it be woodlands or marsh or fields, and changing hiking experience. If you go back to Pennsylvania, I just don't think there's much variety in any of the hiking or the experiences.
It's all bloody rocks. Nightmare. Now, this is the first of 2 catch-ups this week, because this is Wednesday, and I'm going to, now you're past halfway, I want to ask you a few questions, one-word answers really, and it's really your impressions of that first 1,000 miles. So the first question is, what's been your best town so far? When you enjoyed the most?
My best town?
Yeah.
That's probably Hot Springs, North Carolina. I
Yeah, I
loved
loved
Hot
it.
Springs. I
So did
stayed with
I.
Elmer.
Yeah.
I got a true Hot Springs bath. I took a zero there. I enjoyed the town. I had a good meal there. So I met some great people at Elmer's. So that was a lovely experience. I had good weather, which always helps. So
Yeah.
I think that I liked a lot of the town. I like Boiling Springs, but I probably, reacting quickly to your question, I really enjoyed Hot Springs.
Yeah. And what about the worst town so far?
Worst town. Um, Duncannon is pretty
Yep.
rough.
Yeah.
I did stop at the Doyle. It's
Yeah.
an institution, as you know, and I did have a burger and a beer, but I did not stay there. And
Exactly the same as
walking
me.
through there, it's a little
Yeah.
sad. It's you could tell they had some manufacturing facilities on the river at one
That's right.
time, and
Yeah.
I'm sure it's a town that's seen better days. And
Yeah.
it's just sad more than anything. So
So I felt the long walk out of Duncannon sort of
yeah,
underlined my view of it being the worst town. It was a long walk, but then crossing the Susquehanna River and across the bridges, I don't know about you, I was so not used to walking by traffic. It was almost frightening to me. It was just so noisy and I just couldn't wait to get away from it. I really couldn't.
yeah, I had the same experience. I wasn't going to hold that against Duncannon, but in a
No,
sense,
no.
it is part of the experience. And it just, yeah, if I had there may have been another town, but that jumps to mind as one of my least favorites.
Okay. And what about the best hiking area so far? What area did you like for hiking the best?
I think the
As in
Rhone
the most
Highlands
fun.
the Rhone Highlands is probably
Yeah.
my favorite spot.
Awesome.
I want to take Cheryl there. I want to go back and do a weekend in the fall and just walk those balds again. And it's really reasonable hiking. It's not brutally hard anywhere, and it's just lovely, both sort of in the hiking sense, and it's lovely in the views. So
Yeah.
it's still my favorite spot I've been.
And what about the worst hiking area, as in nightmare?
Yeah, I would say the 5 miles from Wind Gap to Wolf Rocks in
All right.
Pennsylvania.
It's tough, isn't it? And what has been your most surprising, in a good way, experience? What was something that really you thought, oh, I wasn't expecting that. That was just so great.
Yeah, I mentioned to you the other day that I loved my first hike in New Jersey around Sunfish Pond and up on
That's
the
right.
ridge. So that was a one. I'm trying to think of another sort of fun. I'll say this one because this will strike listeners who have done through hikes or are familiar with the trail as odd. I thoroughly enjoyed the hike out of NOC. It's a 7-mile climb, and
Oh,
I read about how miserable it was.
yeah.
And I think I was so prepared for a horrible day. I got myself into a state of mind that I'm not gonna let this ruin my day or my hike.
Yeah.
As it turns out, it was a crisp, really beautiful morning. It was cold, which was good for hiking, particularly hiking uphill. And when I went really moderate pace, so I didn't hyperventilate or get too sweaty climbing, and I just took the 7 miles at a very steady pace. And I started realizing that you go through this beautiful pine forest, and then you get into a different environment, and there's still snow on the ground, and we duck behind the shade side of the hill. And in the shade side of the hill, there'd be more snow. There'd be these rock outcroppings with icicles still. And that, to most people, they dread that climb out of the NOC. As it turns out for me, it's a really memorable hike
Wow.
for me because it was surprisingly beautiful and it was fun. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the changing environment. And because I found some gear that was slow enough that I didn't, exhaust myself, but fast enough that I, was able to.
I think that speaks again to your management of your expectations. You know what's coming up. You've researched it so well, and I think that really, really helps. But I also think it speaks very strongly to the sort of day you have. When I left NOC, I started climbing uphill, and it started pouring the whole way. After about 100 yards up there, it started pouring all day long. That's why it was a miserable experience for me. But if you go up on a nice day, yeah, I can imagine that was a really nice thing to do.
Yeah, I was hiking with a guy today, and we both compared notes. And as you said, we've said before, we all experience things at different times in different ways. And what would be great for me might not have been a good day for them.
Exactly.
And a lot of it has to do with weather and mood and those types of things. So, but those would be a couple of my favorite. I'm sure there's other ones, but those would be a couple that come to mind.
And last one is, have you had a real disappointment where you were really expecting something and it just didn't pan out the way you thought it would do?
I can't think of anything right now.
It's the best answer. That's absolutely the best answer, because if you can't think of it, it hasn't been disappointing for you. So that's great.
I guess if there's anything, I would say I haven't had these pop-up hot dog and hamburger trail magic opportunities, but I had my share, and but that was something you hear a lot about. These pancake, dinners or breakfast in the middle of the parking lot as you come through, and haven't had many of those, but that's okay. It's and as we mentioned, in March it was so cold it was hard for anybody to do that. So
that's right.
That's a small disappointment, because some of those things are just kind of just trail experiences that people like to share, and I don't have a big long list of those to be a part of my hike, but I don't think it's a big negative.
You've got plenty of other experiences to look back on, and you've done now nearly 1,350 miles, you say. So you're down to 800 and something miles, which is amazing.
Yep.
Yeah, cool. All right, mate. Well, look, that's the first catch up. We're going to catch up again later in the week, probably Saturday, maybe even Sunday, and we'll catch up then. All right.
That'd be great. We'll talk to you later.
Good talk to you. Thanks. Cheers. Bye.
Bye-bye.
I thought that was a great question from Scott Humphreys. Don't forget to send me your address, Scott, so that Trailtopia can send a couple of their scrumptious meals to you. I also wrote down one of Bruce's responses. He said, "It's hard every day out here." I know he's planned it well and that he seems to have been blessed with the greatest fortune on this trip, yet he finds it tough every day. I'm sure he'd be the first to tell you that this isn't a journey to be undertaken lightly. It's definitely doable, but it's really tough. By the way, I wanted to let you all know that I've set up a Facebook page for the Hiking Radio Network. In future, after a bit of a transition period, if you're used to getting your podcasts from me at the many Facebook hiking sites, I'll soon just be posting the new episodes on the Hiking Radio Network page. So head on over there and like the page. That way, you'll always be notified when any of my shows is released. You can still get them on iTunes and Stitcher and all those places. This is more about a central place for notification when they're released. Additionally, please address your questions for any of the shows to Steve at, surprisingly, hikingradionetwork.com. I still have the Mighty Blue address, but want to move more stuff to the new address. So, moving on, as I say, I had a bit of a disaster yesterday and barely got this episode done in time, but nevertheless, we eventually caught up again late on Sunday afternoon. Here is Bruce again.
Hello.
Hey Bruce, you all right? How are you?
I'm just fine, thanks.
Good. We had a bit of a mission getting through there, didn't we? But we made it anyway. And I've got a thunderstorm going on outside, so it should be interesting noises at the back of this. So we're a couple of hours past the deadline for the show. It's now past 3 p.m. on a Sunday. Where are you now?
I'm at Bear Mountain.
Oh, have you climbed over it yet? You're on the other side? Oh, that's good. What do you think of it, going up there?
The stuff that came before it was worse.
Yeah, you're prepared for it now, aren't you? Physically prepared and obviously mentally prepared. What I was meant was this more, it looked like something I imagine. I don't know if you've ever read Lord of the Rings, but some of the stairs up seemed like that to me, and there were tons of stairs down as well, weren't there?
Yeah, just a massive stairs, true. And, kind of a busy day hiker area.
So you must be then, I'm just trying to think, Oh wow, that was thunder, thunder right above us. You must be about 1,400 miles now, aren't you?
Exactly, 1404.
Wow, how about that? And so I was looking back and seeing various things that you've done recently, and I know that I had a terrible day coming down to New York 17 at Southfields. The rocks, climbing down those rocks there on a rainy day was so dangerous. I fell upside down. I mean, I thought I was going to die. I really did, and I really hurt myself there. Do you remember that climb down?
Yeah, you took the words out of my mouth. I don't know how you did it in the rain.
Yes.
It was so difficult, and I am surprised that with all the preparation I've done, with the discussions I've had, how little I read or was told about Southern New York. There are some horrific climbs and descents in Southern New York,
Yeah.
and it's very different in the Prospect Rock area, which I did on a beautiful day.
Yeah.
You had a ridge walk, but most of those rocks were flattish and rounded, and you had to climb up and climb down a little bit, but it was mostly fun.
Yeah.
It went on and on for almost 4 miles. But the next day we had, these very vertical ups and downs, sort of makeshift stones, but Buchanan Mountain is straight up and straight down. And then, like you say, the descent into 17 was one of the most vertical, difficult, scary descents in the whole trip. And I'm a little surprised it hasn't been highlighted more, or how I missed it.
I'm glad I wasn't measuring it, because it frightened the life out of me when I fell. And that was the day, I don't know whether I've mentioned it to you before, I went for a Chinese meal that night and was really down. I was the closest I ever come to quitting the trail, and I got a fortune cookie that says "Keep on keeping on," and I took a picture of it at the time. And I think that was such an important thing to keep me going the hike. I tell you, getting that. And you've also done the lemon squeezer, haven't you?
Actually, I haven't. Just to get into the details now. So when I came down 17,
right,
I was horrified by the severity of the steepness and the rocks that I already climbed up and down. And I realized that my plan for the day, I wasn't going to meet, and it was going to rain, 100% chance of rain the next day. And I made a decision to come off the trail and avoid killing myself on some of these rocks. And so I ended up yesterday skipping a section and then finishing in Bear Mountain. I've got to go back tomorrow and clean up that spot from 17 north about 5 or 6 miles.
All right. So you skipped about 5 or 6 miles and got back on, and then hiked to Bear Mountain. Then you're going to go back to that section to start tomorrow, and then head north from Bear Mountain. And
then Tuesday I meet up with Brooke for 2.5 days of hiking.
Oh, cool. That'd be nice. That'd be very nice. So you haven't done the squeezer then. So you've got some great things coming up. You've got the deli before Greymore Friary. I remember Greymore Friary. That was a great place to go and camp on this great ball field they have, a ballpark field where people camp, in tents around the field. It's lovely to do. And have you noticed that the profile has started to get a little bit more undulating now?
Well, I'm told that New York, after the river, after I cross the Hudson tomorrow, day after tomorrow, will be gentler than the Southern New York. I'm not sure how much worse it could get then. It was very, very, a number of steep climbs, a number of steep descents. And so while I think there are still some, climbs and descents and the like, I'm told that I've been checking with some friends a little ahead of me that it does improve in terms of the severity.
Yeah, it does. And there are some, I just recall hiking in New York to be pretty joyous, pretty much like New Jersey, except for that one moment coming down in 17. So I don't think it's be too bad. And also you go through is it Harriman State Park soon? I'm not sure whether you've done that or you're about to go through that.
Yeah, I finished that.
Oh, right. Isn't that lovely?
Yes.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed that as well. And you haven't mentioned many people you're traveling with recently. Is it still kind of on, off, on again sort of deal? You just meet up with people and hike with them for a day and then don't see them again for another week? Or how's it been working out with you?
Yeah, it's generally like that. I met up with a guy in Shenandoah from Ireland and have been with him a fair bit over the last few weeks. I think we did 4 days together and separated the day before yesterday. His son came in town. So did that. I've been the last 2 or 3 days, I've been in a little kind of a bubble where we've been fairly alone. I've been with one other guy, but we had 2 nights in a row where there were only 3 people at the shelter area tenting, and so it's sort of funny how it goes.
Yes.
It's a little quiet right now, but maybe in another day or two I'll have 20 people at a shelter. I just don't know.
It reminds me a bit of driving on a highway. I suddenly find myself on a highway being 200 yards behind the car in front and 200 yards in front of the car behind, and yet suddenly one will catch up and then suddenly there's a whole bunch together again. So it feels that way on the trail sometimes. I suddenly thought I was just behind a bubble and just ahead of a bubble. I could have literally days and days of solitude, even though I knew there were a hell of a lot of people within just a few miles of me.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it has been like that. So I'm expecting, and some of these fast hikers, just come through. I was a little astonished and a little bit, I shouldn't say saddened, but the first person who left Springer in April passed me the other day, and I'm like, holy, this person left, a month and a few days after I did, and now they passed me.
That's okay. Doesn't matter, does it? It really doesn't matter.
No.
You don't get it. What did we say? Or someone said to us the other day, the winner is the last one to get to Katahdin. So
that's right. That's what someone on the Mighty Blue Show said that, and I get that. And I don't know why there's still this ego or something internally, like you're saying, well, why am I so slow? But it doesn't really bother me. I'm happy that I'm still standing. I'm happy that I'm not hurt, because there's an awful lot of hurt people out here. A dear friend of mine who I hiked with a bunch, I last saw him in Duncannon, and he was resting from a fall he had in Maryland, and he kept hiking and resting and hiking and resting. It wasn't getting better. He finally found out he had actually broken his tibia.
Oh my gosh! How long have you been hiking for with that?
150 miles.
Man, that's determination. Or he just didn't realize, obviously.
So he's going to be back in 3 or 4 weeks, but there's a lot of injured people out here. And I've said this before, and I just, I think my slower pace has kept me healthier.
No question, absolutely no question. In fact, you're not going that slow anyway. You started the end of February, didn't you? So March, April, May.
Yeah,
you're about 3.5 months into it, or just over 3.5 months into it, and you're 2/3 of the way there. You're going to be finished in August, aren't you?
Yeah, I think I can finish a little bit before Labor Day. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, which is, and what was the plan? It was the plan was a bit earlier than that, but even then, you're not that far away.
Yeah, I'm probably 3 weeks behind the plan if I finish, at the end of August. I've got no deadline, and I think being healthy is better, and smelling the roses is better. And if I finish on August 29th instead of August 12th, it's just not going to matter.
Has anybody? No, I think somebody's asked this question. I apologise to them, because it means they're not going to get any Trailtopia because it suddenly occurred to me. Has this 3 to 4 months given you time to reflect upon things you would like to do after the AT?
Oh, sure, absolutely.
And have you got any big plans in mind, or is it something that's changed, or is this something you want to work on that you've already thought about before you came on the trail?
Yeah, I think in many respects I knew that I would do a little bit of legal work, because I think it's important, sort of in the aging process, to be intellectually challenged and engaged.
Of course.
I also have this new business involving patent analytics that I'm involved in. I'm committed to work with that.
Right.
And I'm trying to carve out some free time for leisure, for travel. And one of the things I enjoy doing, and I'm becoming more and more interested in doing, is doing some speaking, particularly about how things like the hikes, are impacted, how they impact my faith life.
Interesting. That's interesting. And I presume the answer is it's been impacted in a positive way.
Yeah, as I said before, I don't know how, if you are a person of faith, you can spend the amount of time that you spend both in creation as well as with yourself and not be impacted by that. And obviously it can be impacted negatively or positively. I think that an awful lot of people rush through life and don't have the time to meditate thoroughly on a lot of the evidences that I see out there that really prove to me that there is a creator, that there is a God, and that Christianity is true.
Cool. I had plenty of time to think about it. It never worked for me at all. I did have a crack, but it just didn't really work for me. So Brooke's coming out and you can do 2 days. How far do you think you'll get in those couple of days then with Brooke?
We've mapped it out. As you know, in this area, it's been a little frustrating. I've liked New York a lot. It's been very challenging so far, but I have liked it. It just has a lot of uniqueness and interest to the hike, the topography.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's lovely.
But the placement of shelters and tenting areas is very limited. And there's some, most of the land is state parks, and there's heavy restrictions against camping. So truthfully, I haven't done it, but I know a lot of the true hikers are ignoring those rules and, just stealth camping where it's convenient. That's just a prelude to, with Brooke coming out, I wanted to know where we could tent comfortably. And I think we're doing 12 the first day, we're doing 14 the second day, and I think we're doing 8 the last day. And that's to get us to, one is a state park where you pay to camp, another is a shelter, and then third day we've got to get her to a train station so she can go back into the city.
Oh, it's not the, where is the Appalachian Trail station? Well, you mean the one itself, literally that crosses the trail, called the Appalachian Trail?
Well, I wish we could use that, but it only runs on the weekends.
Oh, right.
So about 4 miles south of there, the trail comes within 2.5 miles of Pauling. Right. So we're going to get off the trail there and get an Uber to Pauling train station. And she's already worked out the train schedule to get her back into the city where she's staying with her sister.
Of course she is, Bruce. She's your daughter. She's organized. She better be.
She is very organized. I have to tell you, she's very, very organized, and she's got it all sorted, as you Brits like to say.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well done. Good British expression, sorted. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Well, look, it's lovely to catch up with you again, and this time to catch up twice this week. So we've got a good feeling, and we are now really up to date. You are literally in 12 hours' time, or less than 12 hours' time now, the show will go out. And we'll hopefully catch up with you again next week when Brooke's there. We'll have a chat with Brooke as well.
Yeah, we'll get Brooke on the show next week. Cool.
Appreciate it. Okay, buddy. Well, good to talk to you, and I'll catch up soon, all right?
All right, Mighty Blue. Talk to you soon.
Cheers then. Bye.
Cheers.
So he found problems at the same place as me in New York. I'm a little bit perversely pleased about that, I must say. And I clearly wasn't whinging when I complained about that climb down in my book. It was terrifying. Nice to have 2 catch-ups this week, and good to know that his luck isn't deserting him. Bruce and I will see you next week.